Hello. So my name is Julien, and I'm here to present you what you can do with the web in 2017 and with Ionic. Okay. So before I start, I have a couple of questions to ask you. So can you raise your hand if you have used Ionic before? All right, 5, 6 people. Okay. Raise your hand if you think Ionic is to create native apps.
Exclusively, or can also be used?
Native app, just three hands, okay. Raise your hand if you think Ionic is to create web apps. Okay, most of you, okay. So we're gonna see this in this presentation that it's actually both. It's native and web, and that's what we call hybrid apps. So I'll start my talk by an open question. What do we want as entrepreneurs, project managers, or even developers? I think we all want to create the best products in a minimum amount of time, resources, and money, right? And I will show you today that with the web and Ionic, we can we can code once and deploy everywhere. But why do we have to code once and deploy everywhere? It is because multi-platform has become a new norm. And I myself use up to 4 devices during a day. I don't know about you. How many devices do you use during a day? Can you count? 1? Just 1.
Does TV count?
No, TV count as another device, if it is a smart TV. Okay, so 1, raise your hand. 2. Okay, 3. Okay, most of you. And more than 3? Okay, so most of you use more than 3 devices, 3 or more than 3 devices during a day. And we have numbers to confirm this trend. So studies reveal that we mostly use cell phones in the morning, then we use desktop when we go to work, and we use tablet before going to bed, right? And that is definitely true for me. It is also true for most of you, but is it true for all generations? And the answer is yes. Whether you are 18 or 55, multi-platform is growing all of us. So to reach everybody as a developer now, we must go multi-platform. But developing for different platforms can be really challenging. Creating and maintaining several native applications somehow looks like this. Okay? So there's a nice castle, but to go there, you need to go through a real maze. So it's really complicated. But why is it that complicated? It is complicated because we must use different programming languages that requires different developer skills. And devices have different hardwares to communicate with. And the market is fragmented with many operating systems and many operating system versions. For all of these reasons, developing for a different platform is challenging, not productive and expensive. Do we have alternatives? What if I told you, yes, that the web could be a solution here? So to me, the web is the best platform to build cross-platform applications for many reasons. The first reason is because the web is everywhere. And that's something that's something we all have noticed in our daily routine, right? And we do not think about it that much. It's pretty normal for our generation. The web is on the go. is at your office, on your smart TV, and some recent planes have internet connection now, and you can browse the web directly on your screen seat. Also, it is a real trend in the car industry to add web browsers in cars, and Tesla does it already. And it's even in the air. So right now there is a URL. There's a URL floating around the air here. And if you turn your mobile connection, Bluetooth and location, you might receive a push notification with the link to these slides. Have you received it? Nobody? Okay. You should have. Okay, so if you have Android device, it should be out of the box. If you have an iOS device, you should add on the top slide panel, you can add a Chrome widget. And once you've done this, you should receive the link via physical web. Okay? So I tested it this morning, it was working. But yeah, I think it works, I have it.
Yeah,
Maybe you're too far or something.
I think the Bluetooth issues with the Android Oreo.
Ah, okay. That might just be you then. Okay. Okay. And devices have become more powerful than ever. In 10 years' time, since the first iPhone in 2007, processors and memory specs have exploded, right? And we now have in our pockets more power than needed to run any web application. And the web is evolving really fast. It has more features and that have web developers have new capabilities, new possibilities to work with all the time. And HTML5 is now able to control your device hardware. You can, for instance, access the following APIs. You can make a vibration on the device. You can check the battery status, so is it charging, and that kind of stuff. The network information API. Are you on Wi-Fi? Are you on 4G? Geolocation API, GPS, pretty straightforward. And it can even it can even control machines with the Bluetooth API. And that's what we are going to do right now with this little robot. So I put it here. Okay, and I'm going to open a web page. This web page that is an open source project that was made by Yuri Schacht, who is a GDE for web applications. And here we can open the Bluetooth pairing. So we pair. Should change color. Yep. It did? Okay. And now we can. Yeah, I don't want to put it like really far because we can try. Because it's Bluetooth connection. And now we should move forward. Right? And make a turn. Okay, and this is just a web page. There is no server issue. There is no server connection. And as you can see, I'm not even online. So it's just the web. It's just a web page, client side. You can control stuff like this. Come back. On the edge. Okay.
Edge computing. But not running in.
This is dead. Where was I? Yeah. So service workers is a new feature of the web, and so you went to a lot of conference today and yesterday about service workers. So I'm going to be real fast on this, but it's just a JavaScript file that is ran by your browser in the background, and it is completely separated from your web application, and you can handle events fired either by the web page or by the browser itself. Okay? And it can run even when the web page is closed. You can leverage offline capabilities via network caching and asset caching. You can update your application in the background by just removing the assets. And you can manage web push notification to re-engage your users. And it's available on Chrome, Firefox, Opera, and soon on Safari. So it's available almost everywhere. Okay, so what do we miss the most now to make the web apps really performant? I think we need to make have multi-threading, and that's something that already exists on the web, and it's called web workers. So with web workers, you can delegate expensive operation. You can ask your web worker to do some expensive operation. A worker has its own event loop and memory space. So it does not affect your application if you run a web worker. And it's already available on all browsers. So you can use this to instantiate a worker, and then you can communicate with it via post-message API. So with post-message, you can send data in your worker, and with the on-message event, you can get data back. So we have just seen that the web now provides tools to create almost anything. Yeah? And what we're missing now are tools to be productive while building applications. And that's where Ionic comes into place. So Ionic is a software developer kit, SDK, to build cross-platform application with web technologies. It is open source. It is 100% based on web technologies, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and you can build for many platforms. The first version was released in 2013, and it was based on Angular v1, AngularJS. This year, they released two versions, v2 and v3, based on Angular, which is Angular v2 plus, so v4, whatever. And soon, so maybe before the end of this year, Ionic v4 will be based on Stencil. And Stencil is the latest project created by the Ionic team. So this project is really new. It was announced a month ago, and so we are pioneers here to talk about this. And it's also open source. And it's a compiler to create web components. Okay, you can build 100% vanilla JavaScript custom elements. So custom elements that will run on all the browsers natively. It allows server-side rendering and async rendering. Async rendering is prioritize the UI updates so your app is much faster. It's if you heard about the new React version 16 will have this async rendering. Its name React Fiber. So they stole this idea, and it works really great. And its Stencil is based on TypeScript and JSX. So let's see what a component looks like. So here we have a my hostname component, and it dumps my hostname is blah blah blah. So it looks like this. It's really easy, really straightforward. we have a @Component Decorator, and this is the same API as Angular @Component Decorator, if you're familiar with it. So you set a tag name, a style URL, or directly inline style you can do as well. And in the render function, which is similar to the render function in React, it returns JSX. So props or properties represent data that comes from the outside of the component. Sorry. And here we have a component, my name is, and you want to set data from the outside with a name, and you want the components to dump, like my name is Julien in this example. So the prop decorator here defines what external property we expect from this component. And here we expect name, which is a string. And in the render function, we can access name using this.name. And every time name changes from the outside, the render function will be called again, and the component will re-render with the new value. State represents the internal data of a component. So here we have a counter that changes from 1 to, increases by 1 every second, and it looks like this. We have a state decorator. It defines our internal state, and counter here is a number, and it defaults to 1. In the render function, we can access count using this.count, exactly the same way we can access properties. And we have access to lifecycle events, such as component did load, component did unload, to start our counter here. So every second here, using set interval, every second this count will change, the reference of this count will change, and then the component will therefore re-render every second. Okay, so Ionic comes with dozens of components out of the box, and each of them has a look and feel of the original platform you want to build for. For instance, buttons here. So on the left side, we have material design buttons for Android, and on the right side, we have iOS buttons. And this is the same code base. It's just, it knows on which platform you have exported it, so it has look and feel of the original platform. We have cards, icons. Once again, you can see that there is some differences between the icons, but it's the same code base, so it's pretty clever. Time pickers, date pickers, which is always a pain in the web, but with this component, it's really easy. Tabs, modals, loadings, and slides if you want to create like tutorials when you start your application. And there is much, much more. So as you can see with Ionic, we get all the components that we need to create great UIs. And one good thing about it also is you don't have to learn Swift to code for iOS, or you don't need to learn Java to create, or what? Or Kotlin, yes, or Objective-C, or yeah. So all you need is JavaScript. And with only one code base, we are able to create many platforms, such as Android, iOS, Windows Universal, browsers, desktop application with Electron, so Linux application, Windows OS application, and OS X applications. And of course, for the browsers. And it's one code base to rule them all. So, like I said in the start of this talk, Ionic applications are native applications. They can be installed on Google Play for Android, they can be installed on the App Store for iOS, or any store the platform you use has. But how does it work? It works because of Cordova. And Cordova is the magic behind native capabilities of those hybrid applications. So it's an open source project that provides native shells for a lot of platforms. And this native shell has access to all device hardwares, exactly the same as any native apps. We can control the hardware via a JavaScript API that also is provided by Cordova. And this native shell runs a web view, so it's a simple browser. And on top of this, you can build your application. You can use any framework you want, React, Angular, Vue, or no framework at all. And you can use Ionic web components. So, yeah, your components are have therefore access to all the API that you need to create a great application. So Ionic apps are native, but they are also progressive web apps. They are installable without stores, so you can directly add your application to the home page, just like in this video. And they follow, and they are all of these at the same time. So they are defined as a progressive web app. So they are discoverable, universal, they have offline compatibility, etc. How do we start? How do we start using Ionic? So to install Ionic, you need to install Ionic CLI first. So npm install Ionic globally on your machine. And this CLI allow you to create new applications, new pages, new components, new services, almost everything. You can run with the CLI, you can run the dev server, you can run your application on emulators, and you can run application on your device. And most of all, you can build for every platform directly via this Ionic CLI. So to create a new app, we need to run Ionic start. So you type Ionic start. Right, it's going to ask you the name of your application. You type a name. And then it's going to ask you what template do you want. So do you want to start fresh with a blank application? Do you want a side menu? Do you want a complete application to get examples? You select a template. It will install an npm install. And in a few minutes, it will be ready to use. Okay, after that, it's done. You can go to your folder, and you're good. Next step, you want to run a dev server. So you can run Ionic serve. So Ionic serve will start Webpack and package all of your assets. Okay, so and once Webpack is done, it will start the application on a specific port. So that you have this, you can use on your browser, your application. And now every changes that you make on your code will be live reloaded. There is also an advanced dev server, which is the same command but with --lab option. And it looks like this. So you have, it's exactly the same as the previous command, but it simulates the application on several platforms. So here we have iOS, Android, and Windows. And as you can see, it is exactly the same code base, but they look totally different, right? So, for instance, the tabs on Windows are on top, on Android they are on the bottom, and because Ionic follow the best practices of each platform to put the components in the right place for your users. So you don't have to do anything. It's just out of the box. If you want to export for the web, Ionic build --prod. If you want to minify your assets, and the result is this: you have an asset folder with all the fonts that you need, all the images. You have a build folder with all the JavaScript that you have created, and index.html and a service worker. That's what you have. If you want to build for iOS, it will require some like a MacBook machine or an OS X OS Xcode, and you will need to add the iOS platform to your project. So that's what this command does. Ionic Cordova platform add iOS, and then you can run this command to create the application. And once you have created the application, you can directly open your application on the iOS simulator or directly on device. And it looks great. For Android, it is exactly the same commands, but you just replace iOS by Android. It does have different prerequisites. It has Android SDK, Gradle, Ant, and Java JDK, right? And once you've done this, you can run your application directly in the Android emulator or directly on device. For desktop now, we need to install Electron. And Electron is an open source project also that provides native desktop shells for Linux, macOS, Windows. And if you have used Slack, if you have Slack on your desktop machine or VS Code, you have already used Electron. So you build the production app for the web, then you need to add this little code here, index.javascript, that will instantiate a new browser window with the size you want, and then you will specify the path to the index.html of your application. And it will run your application directly in this native shell. You need to run this last comment. The result is this. So you have a desktop application that can be installed directly on all the desktop OS stores. Okay, so conclusion. I started this talk with this image. Developing and maintaining native application for every platform is painful. And to tackle this problem, hybrid apps, so web apps that run on native shells, were invented. At the beginning, it looked like this. But, and that is true, because I started developing hybrid apps 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, it was exactly like this. It was really crappy, performance were not really cool. And it's because of a lot of things. The web has evolved now, as we see, right? We saw together that the web has evolved, devices have evolved, and now we can, the web can run almost anything in your device. And we also saw that with Ionic, we can create great UI, that we can use framework agnostic components and build for every platforms in minutes. So to me, it looks more like this now. So as you can see, the castles are not the same, right? But I'm not gonna lie, I mean, the result is different. It's not native apps, it's a web app, but it looks great, it feels great, and if you want to try it out, I suggest you install this application, Untapped. So you can install it right now. It's a social network for beer lovers, and it's built with Ionic, and it has a great performance. It has more than 1 million downloads on Android, and it works really cool. I mean, it's perfect, right? We have a big fan here. I know. So yeah, go ahead, install it, and thank you very much.
We have some time for questions. If you could repeat the question so we have
Okay,
recorded
sure.
it.
Yeah?
I think you painted quite a rosy picture of this. Are there any downsides? Because it just looks too
It's too good. Too easy. It is really easy. It is really easy. And like I said in my conclusion, it's not native application, like truly native application. So the castle here are a little bit different. But at the end of the day, the time you gain from going web instead of native is you have a lot of advantages running the web, and to me it's more bright side than downside, or well, it really depends on the platform on the platform you want to build for. So a question I have often is, do you think I should use Ionic for if I build an iOS app, Android app? So I always said that if you only want to target iOS or Android, just one platform, just go native, maybe, if you have the skills. If you want to build for iOS and Android at the same time, well, maybe you can try React Native or NativeScript, really great products. Now, if you want to build application for the web, desktop, everything, just go web. And Ionic is also a great product to help you going that path. Yeah, another question?
What about the size of the binary? So are they much bigger?
Oh, okay. The question is the size of the binary. So I think an Android app is around 20 megabytes. I'm not sure.
It's bigger.
No, it's
I think like average now is around 60.
no. If you build an Android app like without what's the name? If you embed a browser inside, what's the name of it?
A web view?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, so, but, if you don't do anything, I think you don't have you don't embed a web browser inside the application. So it's around 20 megabytes. But you can, if you want great performance across Android devices, like even old devices, you can embed a latest Chromium inside your application. So the size of it will be around 60. So it's 20 or 60, something like this. So it's bigger than native.
But you can have like different APKs on Android, so you only have that for old devices.
Yes, you could do this. Yeah, another question? Again? Yeah?
Yep. When you have so many different platforms that you target, those platforms will evolve,
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
And will your app, if you recompile it, reassemble it, will it
So,
be able to like cope with
yeah.
new functions or new
Yes. Yeah. So every time a new version of iOS or Android is out, also Cordova, the open source project, evolves, and as you have new version all the time, so you can update and build for the new platform if you want. But most of the time it's just backward compatible, so it works. Question?
Yeah, there's a game that's developed in Phaser, the HTML5 game development framework, and then they used Cocoon to push it to Android and
I don't know.
iOS, and then it gets native. And this one here, it has a like strange. The Samsung S8 has a strange aspect ratio. They get a black frame at the top.
Okay. I have no idea. I don't use those products.
Yeah, but is that? Would you have a similar issues with?
No, I think you can. It depends on your Cordova configuration. You can render your application full screen, or you can change those ratios yourself. Yeah, but most of the time, by default, it just looks like a native app. There's no frame on top or on the bottom. Yeah.
Do you find any difficulty with like normal animations, like buttons animating or basic?
With animations?
Yeah.
I don't really use animation that much. Yeah, that's a good question actually. Yeah. Maybe you can run a canvas on your web app and do some performant animations. But otherwise, you can use also CSS animations. I'm not sure if it's that performant on mobile. It depends, I guess. We need to try.
At the end of the day, it's web technology. You can do whatever you can do on the web.
Exactly, yeah.
So
You can do whatever you can do on the web, exactly. So use Canva, CSS animation, JavaScript animations, whatever. Yes?
How is Stencil different from React? It's a lot like it.
Yeah, so Stencil, so the API is really similar to the Angular API and also the React API. So they took the best of both and they created this. So I love TypeScript, so I'm really happy with TypeScript. And I love JSX as well, so it's a mix of both that makes this, and I personally love it.
So basically, it's like React, but you can do it better. Yeah?
Oh.
No, but it's a compiler, so they compile secure web components, and then that's included in your app.
It's
Which is like the other way around, than Angular and React. Kind of.
I can give like my point of view. It's like it's basically like to trying to, like, for developer experience, they're trying to give you the same, all the things that people love from both like using TypeScript and using React. But like she said, it's like compiles down to actual web components. So you can just actually use this in your HTML. And it will look like that in your HTML. It will not be like some special div soup that you don't know how to understand, and you need specific like extensions to actually debug. It's actually a web thing. And the cool thing about this is that you can use these web components inside of a React app or inside of an Angular app or whatever framework you want to use. Or no framework at all. So it's kind of different. The other thing they've been trying to do, like he's showing, it's not totally ready yet. So currently, if you use Ionic, it's based on Angular. And you'll be able to continue using Angular if you want that. But with Stencil, you don't need that. And they have done it in a way that they don't even require a Webpack for packaging up things. And they had a target that, like, every time you compile these things, you should take like less than, I think, 500 milliseconds for actually to be ready. So it's actually like this, like you just develop in your browser. It's not like, oh, I've done my thing, so now I add some comment line like, please compile, you wait 5 minutes, and then you can test. No. Which was the thing with Webpack.
Yeah, it has a lot of promises.
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes. So hopefully before the end of this year, we'll be able to use Ionic with Stencil, so V4, version 4. Do you have time? Yeah? Let's go ahead.
Sorry. Do you face any challenges between different browsers, like browsers, cross-browser compatibility, like Safari?
I had some problem with Safari at some point. I don't recall them, but I usually don't have any problem. And what's cool about Electron, if you do like a desktop application, it's a Chromium that is embedded into a native shell. So it's Chromium for all platforms, like for Linux, Windows, or OS X. So it runs the same on all OS. But I usually don't have any problems with different browsers. You have, I think, it has some polyfill that are loaded by default, so it runs on all the major browsers the same way.
I will point out one thing about Electron.
Do you want a mic?
No, it's fine. A lot of Electron is pretty nice, but a lot of people they wrap up their app and they never update Electron. So it's the same thing. But it's the web, people they find security issues all the time, and they get fixed in browsers. Chrome release every 6 weeks, and then everyone knows exactly how you're going to take advantage of these hacks. But then people have these Electron apps installed and never updates. So there might be a 2-year-old runtime with all these security issues that everyone knows how to take advantage of. So the good thing is that Microsoft is actually bringing virtual web apps to the Windows Store, which is now called Microsoft Store. So you will be able to do the same things with Electron and have this space Edge, so Edge will update in the background. I'm just saying that if you do Electron apps, try to update it. Try if something happens, you need to update it because otherwise you'll lose
Yeah, another question.
Is it possible actually to check the version of the engine in the app so that the app could give a warning that you need to update your EVM kind of functionality?
well, it's the web, so it's a browser. It's normally a user agent. So
Never done that.
So we always say to people, don't check the user agent string for feature detection. Or for instance, if you wanted to check we know there's some issues, you can definitely do that. Yeah.
Well, I think you can also access the OS versions and via Cordova Plugin, so you can do whatever you want via JavaScript, pop up some information if you want to, yeah. Or even you can block the application with a link to, there is a new version. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Download.
I was thinking best practices.
Yeah, you could do this. Yeah, it's pretty common. That's it.
A small request. Could you do the demo again?
Okay, you can do it yourself. I'm gonna.
You have Android?
No, I have a...
Just go, if you can read this. I'm gonna zoom. Oh, I want to zoom this. Can you see it? Yeah. Okay.
Maybe someone is quick.
Yeah, you need the Bluetooth on, right?
Click on the Bluetooth icon in the middle.
That's it. Should change color. Pairing, yeah, you should see it. Well, I'll leave it here if you want to play with it. And I think we're done.
What's the robot called?
It's MIP.
It's green, it's green.
MIP. MIP. Oh, yeah. It's just the web. Okay. Yeah.
Just a question. Is there any limitation for using the functionality within the device as NFC or something?
NFC, I think there is a Cordova plugin for it, and you can just install a Cordova plugin.
Okay. So
Then you
no limitation.
well, there is few limitation. Maybe there is limitation when a new feature of a device is released, like I don't know, like fingerprints. When they released it, it was not. You cannot use it right away, so you need to wait for Cordova to create a new plugin for it, and then once it's done, you can use it with JavaScript, and it works. But the limitation is you need to wait till the community create the plugin for your specific platform.
Or you can just create that plugin yourself.
Or you can create that plugin yourself if you have a like Java background or Objective-C, but you need to code natively. So,
Yeah, that was the last question.
yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.